Okay, all right. Okay, let's start. Namaste, everybody. Let's open our books on page number 376. Ramji at the ocean. Ram lay on the bed of dharab grass. He laid his head in the crook of his arm and lost himself in dhyan. He decided he would either cross the sea or die where he lay. The moon rose and set, and the sun rose again, always westering. Then it was noon, and evening again. Ram had not stirred, slept, eaten a morsel, or drunk a sip of water. He lay unmoving on his bed of grass, and he prayed to the Lord of the sea. His mind was like a lamp that did not flicker. Even the sky above seemed to strain down to the earth when it sensed Ram's immaculate tapasya. He had the singleness of thought that rishis who sit with their every sense stilled for 100 years seldom achieve. For 3 days and nights, Ram lay in prayopavesh, in perfect prayer. We learned about this word prayopavesh earlier, also when Bharat came over there, and so this is like a resolving to die through fasting. That's what it means. Okay, that I'm not going to eat or drink anything until I get what I want. In perfect prayer. Around him, the warners fell silent and then mournful as time wore on. Yet the Lord of the sea did not appear before the prince. The moon, which rose over the third night of Ram's tapasya, sank into the waves in the west. Dawn flushed on the horizon, and the sun appeared behind Mahendra, the Vanar army, and Ram, who lay in dhyan. But at dawn of that fourth day, with sunrise, Ram's eyes also blazed. He turned to his brother, who sat near him in Padmasan, not eating or drinking himself. Ram said slowly, "The ocean is arrogant, Lakshman. It seems that in this age of the world, the Pacific way of Sam is ineffectual. Sam is the Niti. You remember we often talk about Sam Niti, Dan Niti, Dand Niti, Ut Niti. So Sam Niti is asking somebody to do something peacefully. Okay, Sam means peace. So he says it's ineffectual. Even the lords of the elements have regard only for violence, and honor is to be had only from fear. Varun does not understand my gentleness, or he should have stood before us by now. But since he seems to believe I am a weakling whose prayers are not worth hearing, I will change my method. Bring me my bow, Lakshman. Let us see what Varun does when I make vapor of his waters with my asters, and all his fish lie heaving on an arid bed of sand. The Vanars will walk on dry land to Lanka, where my Sita waits in anguish for me. Quietly, Lakshman fetched the bow and quiver. Ram stood forth on that shore like the fire at the end of the yugas. He folded his hands briefly to the ocean. Assuming the archer's stand, alidh, he flitted arrow from arrow to his bow, and they flashed whistling at the waves. The sky grew dark as twilight. Thunder echoed in the darkness, and supernaturally vivid lightning divided the sky in jagged gashes. Ram's shafts of light and flames flew hissing into waves, risen like giant shields to meet them. His arrows pierced the waves as common barbs do flesh. In amazement and fear, Lakshman and the Vanars heard the ocean screaming above the roar to its tide. In a cavernous voice, they heard Ram roar like an angry god. They heard the report of his bowstring again and again. The earth shook. The sky was agitated and waves rose like mountains in the stricken sea, tall as Mandra or Kailash. The monkeys lost their nerve at the awesome violence. Most of them fled screaming up Mahendra. Ram stood like a flame himself on the shore. The ocean howled back at him in pain and fury, but the arrows raged from his hands, a river of fire in spate. Whales, sea serpents, and schools of brilliant fish leaped above the seething water in terror, but they could not escape. All the ocean burned. Hilly flames danced beneath its surface in the belly of the Lord of Waves. A shocked Lakshman fell at his brother's feet and clutched his hand. He cried, "Abandon this wrath, Ram. Return to the peaceful paths of our fathers. You can win this war without laying waste the sea." From the dark sky there rose a great lament, and 100 heavenly voices cried to the Prince of Light, "Ram, do not dry up the ancient sea." But Ram heard neither his brother nor the supernal ones. He snatched his hands from Lakshman, and the river of flames flowed again from his bow. In a terrible voice that was hardly his, gentle Ram roared, "Varun, I will make a desert of you, and the Vanars shall cross into Lanka over your dry corpse." He paused his prodigious archery, then cried again, "I will consume you and the patals below you. All your denizens, fish and whale, shark and timingla, will lie rotting under the sun." Then, standing like a burning rock upon the tempestuous beach, Ram invoked the Brahmastra. It seemed earth and sky would crack open when he chanted the mantra to summon that weapon into his hands. The twilight of the world turned to a night of dread. The sun and moon strayed dizzily from their orbits. At mid morning, stars twinkled down clearly on the earth. 1,000 meteors scorched down into the hissing water. All the slow and stable elements seemed ready to come undone at the very quick of themselves, where the grace of creation held them bound in time. Chaos verged on the world. Gale winds from the sea uprooted knotted old trees and blew them about like wisps of straw. Streaks of lightning fell out of the heavens, their rutilant whiplashes seeming to begin in the stars. Woven into the roar of the storm rang piteous cries of the beasts of the earth, among them Sugriev's warners. Lions and tigers whimpered like frightened cats, and great bears wept for fear in their caves. The weaker, gentler animals were in an absolute frenzy. They dashed about blindly, shrieking, but found no refuge from Ram's ubiquitous rage. As Lakshman watched in disbelief, the ocean receded from the shore. Like a whipped cur, the sea fled from Ram's fury. A yojan of dry seabed lay exposed, its pale expanse strewn with the piteous carcasses of its creatures. Dolphin and shark, great whale, whale eating giant squid, and floundering fish of every hue and size all lay gasping their last on the desert of Ram's anger. Then from the heart of the sea rose a wave loftier than all the rest. A mountain among mountains. It was cloven, and from it the Lord of Ocean stood forth. Varun Dev, tall as the sky, his body was made of water and light, his hair of shining foam. He was an uncanny sun risen in the twilight, and he lit the darkened earth with his marine glory. He wore seaweed and gold on his body, pearls the size of islands, and corals dark as night and bright as sunsets. The waves and the flowing locks of his hair were not separate from each other. The rivers whose lord he was rose around him. Ganga, Yamuna, and the others, luminous goddesses. His people sea serpents with flashing jewels in their heads, and his nereids and mermaid queens all rose around that scintillant Dev. They stood treading the crests of waves. Varun walked slowly out of the water, his hands folded above his head. He dwindled as he came and prostrated himself at Ram's feet. The god of waves cried to the avatar, "You are the soul of peace and love, Lord. This wrath does not suit you. Whatever be your despair, it is not dharma that you should transgress the laws of the natural elements. It is the pristine and unbroken nature of the sun to shine, the wind to blow, the earth to turn around, and it is my nature that I am deep, vast, and uncrossable. Not even I can still the waves that flow from me. What could I do when you petitioned me? I cannot change my nature. I would have to destroy myself to please you and the earth with me. This is why I was silent, and not from any arrogance. What I can swear to you is this much. When the warners cross over me, however they do, no shark or crocodile, no whale or any other creature of the deep will harm them. It is not in my power to grant you any more, Ram, for I surely would, O greatest of all Kshatriyas. The ocean stood humbly, hands still folded before the simmering Ram. But Ram said, "You were so long rising from your deeps, my lord, that I have invoked the Brahmastra. The weapon must have its prey." Varun said at once, Dharmakalya in the north is sacred in my name. The Abhiras are a tribe of Mayavis who obey no law of God or man. The sins they please themselves with are too monstrous to tell. They quell these crimes in the holy waters of Drumkalya, and I bear the agony of retribution for them. For eons, this has continued since evil first came into the world. My torment is endless, like the crimes of the Abhiras. I beg you, Prince of Light, rid me of my ancient suffering with the Brahmastra. Ram turned his back on the waves. He drew his bowstring past his car, past his ear, and the Brahmastra flamed into the sky like another sun from his hands. Scorching the heavens, it flashed toward its mark. The incendiary weapon parted cloud, sky, and time. The earth was riven deep where the astra flared down into it, and out of chasmic fissures in the ground, the dark waters of Patal rose, glimmering to the world's surface. The planet shuddered. The fissures cracked deeper and deeper, long after the arrow itself had bored through the earth and flew out from its other side on an endless journey through the stars. The water that gushed up to fill those plumbless fjords, fjords foamed and raged like the ocean himself. Gone were the demonic Abhiras, tracelessly absorbed into the Panch Mahabhut, the original elements of creation. Their sins were burned to nothing in the realm the Brahmastra slew them into. The residual heat of the Astra, which by now was a galaxy away, dried up those waters. And that place was called Maru Kantra from them. From the shore of the southern sea, Ram blessed Marukantra, sweet and sacred water, rare Aushadhis, filled those clefts in the earth. Where they came from, no one could tell, save that they did so by Ram's grace. But they healed anyone who bathed in them. Of any ailment, Marukantra became a sacred Tirath on earth. Ram's body still glowed with the power of the Astra. Varun said to him in awe, I have a vision, Ram. Let me tell you how you can cross over my waves. The Lord of the Sea pointed a long, lucent finger at a monkey who stood behind Ram. He said, That Vanar is a Nal. He is Vishwakarma's son, and he carries his father's genius in his blood. Let Nal build a bridge across my waves. I swear it shall not sink, and it will bear the weight of the army of Vanars when it marches over me. I bless you, Ram of Ayodhya. My torment of ages has ended. The sins of the Abhiras are not washed in my waters anymore, but in the ocean of the stars. I am in your debt, O Kshatriya. You shall cross over me with your army. The sky above the shore had cleared. The storm on the sea had subsided. Varun bowed to Ram. His smile dazzled the quarters. He turned back into his waves and slowly sank beneath them again with his people into his submarine domain. Soon the sea was as blessed as a lake. Ram heaved a sigh and turned back to the Vanars. Nal stood shyly at his side, a slim, elegant monkey. He said, "What the ocean said is true. I have my father's gift. I will build the bridge for you, Ram, and it will sink only if Varun wills it to, for my bridge shall be strong." Not the sea, not the earth, not the wind or the sky ever forgot the wrath of gentle Ram on that wild shore. Nal Setu. Nal stood beside Ram on the southern shore of Bharatvarsh. The young Warner had a smile on his face, and Ram asked him, "What makes you smile, Nal?" Nal replied, "My lord, I was just thinking that Dand, the way of force, is the best way to achieve what one wants." So this is a Dandaniti. So Samniti and a Dandaniti. Whatever he might have said, it was your arrows that fetched Varun out of his deeps. I did think earlier that I might build a bridge to make the crossing to Lanka, but then I wondered how we would keep it afloat. And it would take much longer than a month to build a bridge that rests on the bed of the ocean. But now Varun has promised to keep our bridge above water. Shall we begin, Ram? Ram said, "Let us begin at once." The vision of a natural bridge came to Nal in inspiration, and he began to issue instructions. It seemed as if the little wood at the foot of the mountain had grown there just to help build this bridge across the sea. The Warners pulled up its trees, and then the trees that grew on Mahendra, they carried them to Nal, who was very busy now, shouting where each trunk should be laid. They must first make a pile of rocks on the shore to be the bridge's support. Some of the Vanars grew on Mahendra's slopes. Hanuman and Trivind, Neel, Angad, and Mend. Effortlessly they hefted huge boulders and threw them down the mountain, where others caught them as if they were little stones. Nal was everywhere, at the head of the bridge, at its base, in between, telling the Vanars which tree trunk should be set where and which rock. Soon the foundations of rock and stone had been laid and shored with the timber. Then came the task of extending the bridge across the waves. And now subtle magic was upon the sea where the Varners worked. Varun kept his word to Ram. A channel of perfectly still water stretched away to the horizon before the busy monkeys. No ripple stirred along that channel. It was like a mirror, though on both sides of it the waves swept on as always. In the tranquil groove across the water, Sugriv's people labored, scurrying back and forth between the bridgehead and the land with the trees and rocks. Quickly the bridge to Lanka took shape. Not a twig of that bridge did the ocean disturb. Under the sun and later the moon, the monkeys worked tirelessly. On the first day, they built 14 yojans, and the far end of the bridge was barely visible from the shore anymore. Nal neither slept nor rested, and Ram and Lakshman stood beside him in turns to encourage and advise him, though he seldom had any doubts about what he was doing. It was as if the undertaking was blessed indeed. Every rock, tree trunk, and branch seemed to have a preordained place where each one fitted perfectly. Those who saw Nal's bridge say that it spanned the ocean as the Milky Way does the sky. On both sides of it the waves rolled, but no spray wet the still channel. No branch was washed away, no stone sank. The zone in which the Warners toiled was utterly calm. Not even the wind blew there. On the second day, growing more expert with every hour, they built 20 yojans, though now the distance between the shore and the bridgehead was great. And the monkeys formed a long chain to carry their loads. At noon of the third day, they saw Lanka's tallest mountain, Suvela, on the horizon and set up a cheer. But Ram said, "Let us rest now and work again after night falls." If we can see Lanka from here, the Rakshasas can see us from Lanka. The Devas of light and the Rishis of Devlok had gathered invisibly in the sky to watch Nal build his bridge. They smiled among themselves that it looked like a parting in a woman's hair, whose tresses were the endless waves. That night the bridge was completed, and the final rocks and trees were carried across to lie on the Lankan shore. The moon was high above, and the Vanars gathered on the beach at Bharatvarsh. Sugriv said to Ram, "My lord, let Hanuman take you across the waves upon his shoulders. Let Angad carry Lakshman. When they cannot walk, or if the ocean breaks his word, they can fly through the air with you." They offered worship to the gods on that shore. Ram prayed solemnly to Shiv, his guru. He was full of anxiety as the hour of reckoning drew near. Ram was the first to set foot on Nal's bridge. The Nal Setu, then Lakshman and Sugriv, cheering loudly, singing and dancing, the Vanar army followed him, now to return to the sacred land only after the enemy was vanquished. Ram's heart was heavier than he cared to show. The Vanars were exuberant. They shouted Ram's name, Lakshman's and Sugriv's as they went along, Angad's name and the Hanuman's. Now another hero was added to their legends. Nal's name echoed beneath the moon and was wafted by the night breeze among silver waves. The monkeys did not just walk on the bridge of stone and trees. As the fancy took them, they dived into the calm sea beside the bridge and swam some way. Then they climbed back on, shivering with the crispness of the water and the breeze, walked again along Nal's bridge through the tranquil band of the ocean. When a different mood took them under the bronze and timeless moon, the Vanars leaped up into the air crying, "This is how Hanuman went," and flew along, as most of them could because of the unearthly blood in their veins. So great was the noise that army made. The moon above no longer heard the waves but only the tumult of the sea crossing monkeys. High above that colorful, colossal force, the Devas and the celestial rishis, the Gandharvas and Apsaras showered blessings down on Blue Ram in the fervent hope that the Avatar's mission would succeed. Their breath filled night sky and moonbeam, breeze and spray, as the heavenly ones whispered in starry tongues, "May you vanquish your enemy, Ram, and rule the world for 10,000 years." Devlok was more impatient than the earth, even that Ravan be slain. Past midnight, when the moon sank low, the army of Vanars landed on the shores of Lanka, swift and quiet, wave after wave of monkeys. Ram hugged Lakshman and cried, "Let us make a camp here. The trees shine with fruit, and the Vanars will be pleased." The Dark Prince knew how to read omens. He had studied their lore with Vashishta. He said, "Did you notice the portents of land, air, and sea, Lakshman? We shall win our war. Yet I see a calamity curled like a sinister fetus in the womb of time and growing rapidly toward its dreadful birth. Though I am certain we will prevail, I have a terrible premonition of tragedy. I see not only a million Rakshasas being killed, but their blood staining this island. I see the death of so many of our merry Vanars and the solemn and mighty rikshas of Jamvan." He grew silent. The last lines of monkeys gained the beaches of Lanka, and like shadows they hid in the dense groves of mango and banana trees. Ram said again, "Listen to the earth. Can you hear it prophesy the grim fate that stalks this island? I feel the sands of time on my cheek, blown in a warming breeze. I feel a hush upon the world and see blood drops in the clouds that gather across the face of the moon. Look up, Lakshman. Who has seen so many crows and kites in the sky at midnight? And the stars are wrapped in ominous halos. It is as if the end of the world is here." This will be more of a battle than we have dreamed, Lakshman. I can feel it in my body. A million lives will be put out on these shores. Ah, not only to save Sita have we crossed the ocean, but to fight the greatest war of our times. We must not underestimate the enemy. We must be vigilant so he does not take us unawares. Uncanny visions rise in my mind of timeless evil and a battle older than the earth, which has been fought before on countless worlds in forgotten ages. Even after this battle of Lanka, the war shall be fought again and again until time ends, and Dharam and Adharam with it. Ram grew somber and fell silent. After a while, he said, "This Ravan is no ordinary Rakshas. He is more than we think he is. His soul is ancient, and this is just one incarnation of his through eternity. But he must be killed. Much more than Sita's life is at stake here. The future of the world is in your hands and mine, and the hands of those loyal, loving monkeys. We must win this war." The Vanars surrounded the princes again. Ram saw how excited they were, how devoted to him. Had they not crossed the sea for their Ram and joyfully, they also knew with the unerring jungle instinct that they had come to fight the eternal war between good and evil. But tomorrow or the next day, the sky would be dark with the arrows and lances of the Rakshasas, and the trees and rocks these monkeys would hurl back at the demons. Tomorrow, countless brave Vanars and fell Rakshasas would lie side by side, and their blood would stain the earth of this pristine island. Ram wept for them all. The next chapter is spies. In another tide, the Vanar army covered the southern shore of Lanka. Then across the night's last yam drifted the sounds of bugles and drums. I don't know whether you're familiar with this term yam or not. This yam word comes in Bhagavad Gita also. Let me remind you, in chapter, I think 17, when Lord Krishna talks about the tamasic food, he says, Yat yamam gat rasam puti. So he says that food which is older than 3 hours. So yam is 3 hours. He calls it tamasic, 3 hours. Yam. When we do our prayers also, one of the line we read, नाम आपका कंठ से निकले आठों याम. So in 24 hours there are 8 yams. So each yam is equivalent to 3 hours. So when we say naam aapka kant se, that means I should keep on reciting your name constantly. Atho yam. Okay. So in another tide, the Vanar army covered the southern shore of Lanka. Then across the night's last yam. So that means last 3 hours of the night. Drifted the sounds of bugles and drums. Lanka was awakening to another day. As the sun rose, so did the Vanars, who saw the great city above them resting on its hills. They stood awed, gazing at its vivid flags fluttering in the dawn breezes and its turrets of gold and silver. In one immense voice, the monkeys roared their excitement at being here, and the earth shook. The Rakshasas in Lanka heard that noise and were astonished. Ram was pensive. He turned to Lakshman. Look at Lanka upon its hills. For almost a year now, Sita has been a prisoner there. Can you imagine the torment in her eyes and the tears those eyes have spilled? Look at Lanka, Lakshman. Her turrets seem to stroke the sky. Vishwakarma built his city for Ravan in fear. Morning mist drifted across the hills, and for a breathtaking moment it seemed Lanka floated on air like an island on another sea. The breeze wafted down the scents of its gardens, and Ram sighed, "Ah, the city we must attack is like Kuber's Alak." For a time, Ram stood wrapped in the spectacle of Lanka poised above them. Then quietly he turned to the task at hand. He called the warriors together around him. Ram said, "Let Angad and Neel be at the heart of our army. Let Rishp be on the right flank and Gandhamadan at the left. Lakshman and I will go at the head of our legions, and let Jamwan and Sushen bring up its rear." When these instructions were being carried out, Ram came to Sugriv. "I think this deployment is the best we can hope for, my friend. Now it is time we set Shuk free to fly back to his master and tell him we are here." You remember that Rakshas Shuk, he went there. So then they tied him. So Sugriv gave the command, and bonds at Shuk's feet were cut. With a moan and not a glance behind him, the demon streaked away toward the imperial city above. Disheveled and shaken, Shuk arrived in Ravan's presence. His king laughed to see him. "Who bound your wings, my little Rakshas?" cried the lord of the evil. "Who marked your pretty face with bruises? Don't tell me you fell among Sugriv's warners." Ravan's guards cut away the vines around Shuk's body. Shuk stood before his master tearfully. The spy said, "I flew to the shores of Bharatvarsh as you commanded, but when I gave the Vanars your message, they tied me up and beat me without mercy. They would have killed me if Ram had not stopped them. They are ruthless creatures. They are quick to anger and implacable when they are angry." The spy trembled to think of the moment when he was sure his end had come, when he lay under a mountain of monkeys who beat him and kicked him, their fangs bared in his face. Recovering himself under his king's 10-headed gaze, Shuk said softly, "I saw him, my lord. I saw Ram, the scourge of Virad, Kamband, and Khar. I saw him amidst his teeming Vanar army. Last night he landed that army on the southern shores of Lanka and posed him no obstacle, but came quailing before him when he burned the tide with his asters. Varun told Ram how he could cross the waves with his legion of the jungle. Great Ravan, even now Ram's army marches on your city. Return Sita at once or be prepared for war." Ravan's roar echoed against the walls of his palace. The demon thundered, "Let not only the jungle, but all the earth and all the armies of Swarag and Patal come to fight me. I am Ravan. I am not afraid. Let the Devas and the Asurs arrive at my gates. With their bright and dark hosts, I will face them. But Sita stays here with me. She is mine. As for this Ram, I will cover him with my arrows as bees do a flowering unang in spring. As the sun dims the stars and turns night to day, I will take Ram's glory from him. When he stands before me, he will discover, and the world will discover his worthlessness. My asters will consume him, and he will be a heap of ashes before your eyes. I am Ravan. My valor is as deep as the sky. My speed is of thought and time. Ram does not know who I am, or he would not dare come to my island. No one has told him that not Indra or Varun, not Yam, who is death, or Kuber, who was lord of the earth, could stand before me in battle. That is why Ram has come to Lanka like an ignorant boy who has not bargained for the swift end he will find here. His breath was harsh and heavy, and his eyes burned crimson. The 9 heads around the central face now appeared, now vanished in their baleful cone. Shuk stood shivering before his king. Ravan grew quiet again, and his quietness was more menacing than his open fury. Slowly, the demon of Lanka said to Shuk and another Rakshas who was there in his presence, "Shuk and Saran, My brave spies, the army of monkeys has done what I never dreamed they could. They have crossed the ocean. Now we must prepare in earnest for war. Go, both you clever ones, turn yourselves into monkeys and go among Sugriv's people. Bring back a detailed account of their numbers, their weapons, and how the army of apes is deployed. Which one commands which part of it, and how powerful each one is. Go now, fly. They went before he had finished, for they read their king's mood clearly. Beneath all his bluster and roaring, they sensed the despair that consumed him. When Ravan was left alone, his 9 demonic heads reappeared around the royal one, and all 10 conferred sibilantly. Turning themselves into monkeys, Shuk and Sharan crept into Vanar army. They strolled along its length and width, chattering intently between themselves so no other monkey spoke to them. They saw how the jungle force was arrayed, which Vanars commanded each flank, and which the center, the front lines, and the rear. But as they walked through that wild multitude, trying to count its numbers, Vibhishan saw them. Knowing who they were at once, he pounced on them with a band of monkeys and dragged them before Ram. They cringed and cried that Ravan had forced them to come, that he would kill them if they did not obey him. Don't kill us, noble Ram, they wailed. Your mercy is a legend in the world. Ram smiled at them indulgently. Have you finished with spying? Then go back to Ravan and tell him everything you saw. If there's anything else you want to know before you go, Vibhishan will take you around and show you all our secrets. But return to your master and tell him from me. You dared take my Sita from me. Now you will have to prove yourself in battle. Come out, Ravan. Bring all your sons, your brothers, and your commanders. Stand face to face with me. Tomorrow Lanka shall be ruined worse than Hanuman left it. Tomorrow you will find me at your gate and discover that Ram's arrows are more terrible than Indra's Vajra. Tomorrow, Rakshas, you will taste my anger. Shuk and Sharan fell a score of times at Ram's feet. They would rise and begin to go away. Then, overwhelmed again, they had spared their lives. They would run back and prostrate themselves at his feet. At last, the Vanars chased them away. They fled straight into Ravan's presence and reported, Vibhishan saw through our disguise, and the Vanars captured us. They dragged us before Ram, but the noble prince set us free. He said, take all the secrets you have gathered. And if there's anything else you want to know, ask Vibhishan or the monkeys, and they will help you. But go back to your master and say, I will be at his gates tomorrow. Tell him to meet me with his army and all his brothers and sons. Let us see how they save him from me. Ravan, we have never seen Kshatriyas like Ram and Lakshman. Greatness shines from their bodies like light from the sun. Lord, you have always taken our advice. Listen to us now. We have never seen an enemy like this one. It is not wise to have war with him. We may not be great warriors like some others, but we have seen the world. We say, return his Sita to this prince of Ayodhya. Make peace with him. He is terribly brilliant and dangerous. Wordlessly, Ravan strode out through his windows onto the vast terrace outside. Sharan and Shuk followed their master meekly. They saw how grim his face was. For a long moment, the wind blowing their hair, King and Minyas stood silently on the terrace, gazing out over Ram's army. At last, Ravan said, tell me which monkey chieftain is which. Show me which one leads each legion of the jungle rabble. Ravan's spies pointed out Nal and Neel to him, Angad, Hanuman, and many more Vanars. Then Ravan's red eyes rested on Vibhishan. There was untold rage and pain in them, and Shuk and Sharan trembled even more. The spies smoothly moved onto Lakshman, who stood on the other side of Vibhishan and Sugriv, Sushen and Jamvan, the lumbering king of bears, Gaj, Gavaksh, Gavya, Mend, Dvind. They showed their sovereign. His eyes grew grave when he saw how radiant those monkeys were, how strong and agile. Quite suddenly, at the heart of the knot of monkey chieftains, they saw Ram. Unearthly blue he was, and the bow at his back gleamed in the sun. Shuk and Saran saw their king's gaze riveted to the dark prince. Taking courage in both hands, they whispered together, Lord, that is Ram. For just a moment, when he saw Ram at the head of that merry force of the jungle, it seemed Ravan felt a pang of doubt. But then quickly his eyes were hard again. He turned snarling on Shuk and Saran. You want to frighten me with this ragtag of foolish monkeys? Who but witless apes would follow a hermit into Lanka to fight Ravan? As for you two, count yourselves lucky that I don't have your heads. Put it down to the services you have done for me in the past. Now go before I change my mind and reward you with the death you deserve for trying to sow fear in our hearts. They bowed to him, crying, Long live Ravan, may victory be yours, and fled from his presence before he did indeed change his mind. They knew that, given the occasion, the lives of his servants meant little enough to the Rakshas. Let's stop it here. So, any question, comment? Yes, Jyoti.
Nobody's ever has a question, but I can ask. We've heard stories about how they built a bridge that they wrote the name Ram and the rocks floated.
Mm-hmm.
That was not mentioned here.
No, not at all.
So that's not true.
Yeah, not according to Valmiki's Ramayan.
Okay.
Because Ram never showed that he is an avatar.
Okay.
He acted like a very ordinary human being, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure, he had all those astra and shastra given by his gurus, but he never showed that I have some supernatural power.
Okay.
Because if he would have written the Ram on those boulders, then it will be like because of Ram's name. So that Tulsidas ji, out of his love for bhakti for Ram, wrote that in Tulsidas Ramayan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Valmiki Ramayan, there's no mention
There's
of
no
that.
mention of that.
It
Okay.
was like a blessing from the Varun also, Varun Dev, and Nal's powers.
Those powers. Okay.
Okay, because he was a Vishwakarma's son. So he is the one who really built it.
Okay.
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 So Ram doesn't take the credit for anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, somebody can say that, yeah, Ram, why didn't he just go there and brought Sita back? Or why couldn't he protect him when Rakshas came and all that? Ram never showed any of that supernatural powers which he had, but he never showed. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Urmilji?
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Yes. Hello, Urmil.
When they think, Lakshman starts thinking twice about doing the war and, so many people will get killed. Doesn't
Ram
it
did,
sound
not
like
Lakshman.
Arjun?
It is Ram who's talking, not Lakshman.
Okay. Okay. But isn't it sounding like Arjun? Not that much concerned, but similar language that why do this war and kill so many people and so much harm to the, the
Yeah.
population of the one
Yeah,
rice.
he doesn't show the wavering mind, but he's only
Concern.
this is what's going to happen after the war, and which is true. So he's not like Arjuna, but he's only mentioning, Ram is mentioning that what will happen. So that's exactly what happened too. Every war, no war is without bloodshed. Okay, so it's a Ram which is just thinking it loud that this is what's going to happen. Okay, so not a wavering. He doesn't say that we are not going to do it, but he says, yes, this is what will happen. Yes, Jyoti.
He had more powers than what Arjun had at that time.
Yeah, of course, of course. He was more control of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
Neeru?
हाँ हर्ष जी नमस्कार.
Namaskar, Neeru.
मरुकंतारा जो प्लेस ब्रह्मास्त्र जहाँ पे गया था और वो जो उनका वध करा था अभिराज.
Yeah, there was a Jati over there. That's what they mentioned, that there was a island and Jati over there, which was always doing sinful acts. So Varun said, why don't you send your Brahmastra over there?
तो मरुकंतारा कोई जगह है?
Jagaha must be the name. I mean, I don't know what the name today is, but at that time it must be, because this is mentioned in the Valmiki's Ramayan.
Okay.
So because once you draw a weapon, that we see that all the time, even when Ramchandra ji was coming back from Mithila with Sita, and then there was a Parshuram came and Astra was taken, and then we had to send it, right? So the same thing happens over here. So the Astra was sent to that island. Okay. So anybody else?
Nope. I think we're good.
Okay. Let me go over the titles in the Hindi book also. श्री राम का समुद्र के तट पर कुशा बिछाकर 3 दिनों तक धरना देने पर भी समुद्र के दर्शन न देने से कुपित हो उसे बाण मारकर विक्षुब्ध कर देना. Okay. समुद्र की सलाह के अनुसार नल के द्वारा सागर पर 100 योजन लंबे पुल का निर्माण तथा उसके द्वारा श्री राम आदि सहित वानर सेना का उस पार पहुंचकर पड़ाव डालना. श्री राम का लक्ष्मण से उत्पात सूचक लक्षणों का वर्णन और लंका पर आक्रमण. श्री राम का लक्ष्मण से लंका की शोभा का वर्णन करके सेना को व्यूहबद्ध खड़ी होने के लिए आदेश देना. श्री राम की आज्ञा से बंधन मुक्त हुए शुक का रावण के पास जाकर उनकी सैन्य शक्ति की प्रबलता बताना तथा रावण का अपने बल की डींग हाँकना. रावण का शुक और सारन को गुप्त रूप से वानर सेना से भेजना, विभीषण द्वारा उनका पकड़ा जाना, श्री राम की कृपा से छुटकारा पाना तथा श्री राम का संदेश लेकर लंका में लौटकर उनका रावण को समझाना. सारन का रावण को पृथक पृथक वानर युद्धपतियों का परिचय देना. वानर सेना के प्रधान युद्धपतियों का परिचय. शुक के द्वारा सुग्रीव के मंत्रियों का, मैंद और द्विविद का, हनुमान का, श्री राम लक्ष्मण विभीषण और सुग्रीव का परिचय देकर वानर सेना की संख्या का निरूपण करना. रावण का शुक और सारन को फटकार कर अपने दरबार से निकाल देना. उसके भेजे हुए गुप्तचरों का श्री राम की दया से वानरों के चंगुल से छूटकर लंका में आना. So this is up to here we read that in English. So we'll start from.
हर्ष जी युद्धपतियों का मीनिंग क्या है?
युद्धपति means जैसे सोल्जर्स होते हैं ना, सोल्जर्स के हेड ऑफ द सोल्जर्स.
पर वो सेनापति नहीं होंगे?
हाँ, पर same thing. Head of that particular group of soldiers.
I thought this is something to do with the monkeys.
No, not because of monkey. It's just anybody who's fighting. Yuddhapati. Okay. Anybody else?
Padmini.
Padmini is there today.
She just joined on, I think. Padmini?
Yeah.
Okay,
Namaste.
Padmini, yeah, please, if you're ready, you can sing a bhajan for us.
Nice to see you, Hersh. Beautiful class. Namaste.
Thank you.
प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। पाप कटे दुख मिटे लेकर राम नाम, भव समुद्र सुखद नाव एक राम नाम। राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। परम शांति सुख निधान दिव्य राम नाम, निराधार को आधार एक राम नाम। राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। परम गोप्य परम दिव्य मंत्र राम नाम, संत हृदय सदा वसत एक राम नाम। राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। मात पिता बंधु सखा सब ही राम नाम, मात पिता बंधु सखा सब ही राम नाम। भक्त जनन जीवन धन एक राम नाम। राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो राम राम राम, राम राम राम, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम।
Thank you very much, Padmini. Beautiful, beautiful.